What's up everyone, Kawaii here, welcome to my playthrough of Grisaia Phantom Trigger Volume 8. This is part 5 of my Grisaia Phantom Trigger Volume 8 playthrough series. If you haven't seen the other 4 parts, or if you'd like to see my playthroughs volumes 5 through 7, you can click the playlist link in the description down below. But yeah, we're gonna pick up where I left off back in part 4. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright guys, here we go. So, last time we left off, we have now switched from the higher-ups, Ianishi and the other higher-ups in TFA, to Patrick and Bruno and Oliver's group. So, and last time we left off with them, they are now going back to one of the TFA military bases. So let's see where that goes. We must have walked with the guards for about 30 minutes. There is visible relief on the girls' faces. They must feel at ease having joined up with some of our allies. But it's clear from our expressions that Bruno, Oliver, and me are anything but relaxed. Oliver's face is clouded over. He isn't happy with the situation at all. Bruno must have sensed that something is off too, as he looks equally troubled. As for me, I feel suffocated by an indescribable sense of anxiety that's pressing down on my chest. It's not only the sense of unease that stems from not knowing what's going to happen to us. It's also the fact that these guards give off a familiar scent. It's the scent that marks a loser, and it's much thicker than when I smelled it from my parents. It's the scent of death. One part of my brain wants to believe that things can't possibly get any worse than they already are. Another part is ringing the alarm bells and screaming at me that we're in trouble and should run away immediately. The guards keep glancing back at us suspiciously, pretending that they're checking for stragglers. What they're really looking out for is runaways. The girls let out breaths of relief when they hear those words pronounced, and reply with a cheerful, "Okay." The guard who called out to us is the Slasher from before, who tried to cut open the mouth of Roger, the thirsty man, with his knife. I don't know his name. He's giving all these guys nicknames now. The muzzle of the automatic rifle hanging from the Slasher's shoulder strap is pointed diagonally at the ground. His finger isn't on the trigger but is resting on the safety. In other words, he's practicing good trigger discipline. Good on him. If I were to turn on my heels and run away at full speed right now, he would surely release the safety and shoot me in the back without a moment of hesitation. Beads of sweat start trickling down my forehead when I think of it, and it isn't just because it's so hot and humid here. Their base. If that's what they say it is, then that's what it must be. But personally, I don't see anything around here that looks like a base. My brother told me that soldiers must always act on the presumption that they're being watched by the enemy. In other words, they wouldn't set up a base in such a way that a civilian could spot it at first glance. Looking closer, I spot some low tarpaulin shelters that are cleverly disguised by the vegetation. Even our own soldiers could easily miss them if they weren't paying attention. Oliver raises an eyebrow and lets out a soft snicker of contempt. One corner of his mouth raised slightly. True. A shit bucket? Y'all are surrounded by trees. You could just dig a hole in the ground and shit in there. Oh, is that why they're so dehydrated? So the water supply isn't exactly all dried up. I guess that would make sense why they would avoid bodies of water. But still, are y'all fighting over a bottle of water? I mean, if you're that thirsty, you should probably start going to the water supplies. In fact, I think fighting over a bottle of water will drive in more attention from the enemy. Just saying. I mean, that's just my suggestion, of course. What do I know? I'm not a soldier. I'm just some lonely-ass civilian playing visual novels. Oliver snickers again, snorting softly. The front line has long since passed us by. This place is deep within enemy territory. Naturally, they would know where the sources of water are in the forest. Their snipers could simply wait with their guns trained on each spring and shoot down our men when they got thirsty and went to seek water. I finally understand why these guards were so desperate for a drop of water before. Excuse me. A soldier who has been standing guard at the base entrance limps up to us, having heard our voices. Oh, they're probably starving too. The corporal raises his hand, his palm out, gesturing for an approaching sentinel to stop. The latter's expression suddenly hardens, as though he has only just noticed all of our people standing behind the corporal. I hear obvious disappointment, resentment even, in the sentinel's voice. He must have been expecting reinforcements and is plainly annoyed to hear that we fled from the front line. The corporal must have detected the sentinel's anger too. He gives him a small nod and starts explaining, glaring at the sentinel all the while. So it looks like they're just getting news of the TFA's counterattack plan. Be patient. How often has the sentinel heard those words by now? They seem to work on him like a magic spell, cooling him down, subduing his emotions in the blink of an eye. Wait, what did he say? Carter. So Oliver Carter. He was addressing Oliver, right? Yeah. Okay, we get Oliver's last name. Yeah, we don't get his face. The two men start walking towards a small tent, only big enough for one person to sleep in. Perhaps it's the shelter that was set up for the corporal's personal use. It's a natural question. The two members of the guard have important matters to discuss, but we have nothing to do with any of that. If we could, we would simply have said goodbye here and gone on our own way. But now that we know about this base, I doubt they'll just let us go. The corporal answers without even looking back at us. A different man stands up between us, hiding the corporal from view. It just had to be the slasher that was ordered to show us around. The man, Henry Mendes, looks to be Mexican-American. He reminds me of an athlete. If he disapproves, he's not letting it show. He tells us in a business-like tone to follow him. There's no point in asking. I'm sure we all know that we have no choice but to follow. I turn around to avoid Bruno's questioning gaze, only for my eyes to meet those of all the girls who are staring at me. Bruno shoots a sidelong glance at Mendes' back. Perhaps what he really meant by his question is, do you think we can trust him? A valid question, considering we only just met him. Not like any of you guys have a choice at the moment. Having reached the conclusion, I go to take a step forward when I feel a tug at the hem of my shirt, and I come to a halt again. I know without looking that it's Natalie. I crouch down to meet her eyes. Then I notice that she's clutching the fabric of her skirt. Her knees are pressed together, and she's squirming uncontrollably. Oh, well, I know for a fact that that means she has to pee. She has to use the little girl's room. Natalie's voice is so soft that I have to turn my ear to her face in order to hear her. I can feel her breath in my ear as she whispers. Right. That's what I had gathered from her body language already. Well, if you do have to go do it, then you're gonna have to walk far away from the guards, because I have a feeling that they're gonna try and lap up any type of moisture that they see. I smile and soothe down the fabric of her skirt before taking Natalie's hand in mine. Captain Mendes stops in his tracks at my question, and when he turns around and sees me holding Natalie's hand, he seems to understand. Oh no, please don't! Please don't! No annoyance is visible on his face as he reaches out his hand towards Natalie, but she clings to my hip and refuses to let go. Seeing the way Natalie is acting, Captain Mendes takes a deep breath and mutters another, "Alright." He stands up straight and points in the distance with his free hand, the other still clutching his rifle. What do you mean the scent will give us away? Well, I mean... Wait. Oh, Bucky buried in the ground. So, hold on. I mean... I guess? No, this still doesn't make sense to me. So... maybe it does. Maybe I guess it would make sense to have like one central area to do your business instead of multiple holes filled with piss and shit. But like, I mean, if you're worried about the scent giving you away, then I don't know, because I feel like if it's like one bucket filled with piss, all this piss and shit that's exposed to hot, humid climate, then that smell would be a lot stronger than, say, multiple different holes, wouldn't it? I mean, I feel like multiple holes with one turd and one puddle of piss buried underneath it would be much harder to sniff out than, say, a giant bucket full of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Doesn't really make all that sense to me. Well, again, what do I know? I'm just a civilian. Also, like, I only imagine the smell. Oh, the smell. I don't think Natalie would even... I think it would be better for her to just... Ugh.
迷子にでもなられて大声で俺の名前を呼ばれでもしたらかなわんのだ。はい、すみません。武器は持っているか？いえ、何も。ならいい。万が一敵と遭遇しても決して戦おうなどと思うな。お前の役目はその子を必ず生かして逃がすことだ。はい。よし行け。残りの者は俺についてこい。
Captain Mendes adjusts the strap of his rifle, which is hanging from his shoulder, and signals to Bruno to start walking. Natalie and I still holding hands, watch the captain from behind as he strengthens his back like a proper soldier and walks away. I don't know. Usually when characters say that, it's only moments later when it's revealed that the character cannot be trusted. But we'll see. It's a bit simplistic to decide that based on what little I know about him, but it's because I first got to know him as the slasher that he suddenly looks a lot more dependable right now. It's the same phenomenon that makes even the worst delinquent look like a good guy when he feeds a stray dog. I mean, I'm guessing it's just that little bit of humanity that often catches people off guard. My thoughts are interrupted by Natalie tugging at my shirt again and impatiently stamping her feet. She probably doesn't care what I think about Captain Mendes. We make our way through the tall grass to the red rock that Captain Mendes pointed out to us. It is a lot further away than it looks. After a while, I noticed that Natalie's face has turned tomato red and she's letting out soft groans like a small animal in discomfort. I decide to pick her up and run. Jeesh! How much moisture has this girl been drinking? How much liquids? And how long has she been holding this in for? Yeah, exactly what did she drink? When was the last time she drank something? Because I feel like after all that, then she would have had to have gone like a long time ago. Did she drink before she went into the bunker? I don't know. It's kind of making me wonder. Maybe she has been holding it all this time. If so, then what a trooper. We passed the rock, but I can't find any bucket buried in the ground. I look around to see if I can spot any flies, which would point to its location. When I spy some, they led us to a hole much deeper than I was expecting. I set Natalie down on the ground gently, urged her to hold her skirt and quickly pull down her underwear. I realize that I'm being quite rough with her, but every second counts. I know that all too well from having been in similar situations with my little sister before. While Natalie is doing her business, I take a few steps away and gaze up at the sky. It would be awkward to stare at her the whole time after all. Even dogs seem to get uncomfortable if you watch them pee. They'll stare up at you with those big, guilty-looking eyes. Why do dogs look so guilty when they're peeing? Oh, anyway, as a kid I used to earn a bit of pocket money running a dog walking service, and I always wondered about that. I'm guessing it's because, like when dogs do their business, then that's when they're at their most vulnerable. So, when they're peeing, you know, they gotta keep a close eye out. Like, when they see somebody or something staring at them, you know, they gotta, you know, they get anxious. They probably get anxious. They gotta wonder, like, are they really gonna attack me? Like, right then and now? Like, even if it's, like, an owner, if it's their owner that they've known for years, they probably still get uncomfortable because it's the uneasiness of some other organism watching them doing their business in their most vulnerable state. Anyways, that's just my speculation, of course. What do I know? I'm not some veterinarian. I've walked a wide variety of dog breeds, and the majority get this sad, wistful expression every time. Do they feel embarrassed? Do they not want to be washed? Do dogs even have a sense of shame? Who knows? As I let my thoughts drift to things that don't matter right now, Natalie returns. The expression on her face isn't one of happiness or relief. That's quite similar to that of every embarrassed doggy I encountered throughout my dog walking career. It takes some convincing for her to let me do this, but I go and check on the bucket. It seems like she was able to do her business without any spillage, so I reassure her that everything is okay. She repeatedly punches me in the hip in response. Understandably so. I mean, is there really a need to check the bucket? I mean, come on. When we return to the place Captain Mendes had told us to meet him, we find him waiting for us there already. His expression doesn't change when he spots us. He just grumbles that we took too long and turns around with a, "Follow me." Natalie walks behind me as if she's hiding from the captain. It seems like she's still afraid of him. The captain doesn't look like he's bothered by this, though. He continues walking ahead quietly. After about 5 minutes of walking through the thick undergrowth, a large tent appears ahead of us. A number of injured soldiers are sleeping on the ground nearby. Oh, Sally! Sally! What's going on, Sally? An agitated voice reaches my ears, and I immediately recognize it as Sally's. Something serious must have happened. I let out a deep sigh and close my eyes for a moment. But no matter how hard I rub my eyes, I can't wish away the troublesome reality before me. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Something big. Something really big just happened. There are Few phrases I hate as much as nothing we can do. But that's really true in this situation. I turn to Bruno, who is standing next to the tent with his arms crossed. Okay, well, Oja is playing, so I guess it's not, maybe not that serious? What do you mean, ma, nah? He doesn't give a clear response, which is just that he doesn't know who caused the trouble either, who is right and who is wrong. These kinds of situations only get more complicated when third parties get themselves involved. But leaving them alone isn't going to solve the problem either. And since I'm quite used to getting embroiled in other people's issues, I can't just keep quiet and watch. Maybe this is the role I'm built to play. I timidly address the soldier who has been arguing with Sally, and he angrily turns to me. His glare seems to be asking if I can be reasoned with. In reply, I can only muster a half-hearted smile. Tell her what? What could this be about? Did Sally make some demand or request that didn't make sense to these military guys? Aww. Do you even still have Luis's body? I don't think so, right? Isn't Luis's body still at that one, like, at that one place? Like, quite a distance from you guys, right? I don't think anybody would be too happy to carry a dead body, like a whole ass corpse, through hot and humid weather. Different opinions, different differences in values. To Sally, holding a funeral for her fallen friend is the most natural thing in the world. But to a hardened soldier, it merely represents an unnecessary risk. No cook would open his kitchen to any random fisherman who turned up with his catch demanding free run of the restaurant. I mean, I understand her grief, but she should know by now that holding a funeral at this situation is just not practical. Are you gonna give Loraine a funeral as well? It's true that we are in enemy territory, stuck between the front line and the enemy's base. If we talk even slightly louder than usual, the enemy might discover us at any moment. I mean, there was literally a bunch of soldiers yelling at each other over a bottle. Once again, a bottle of water. So, if that isn't raising enemy awareness, then I think you guys should be okay. Considering the degree of risk and the situation we're in, there's no way he could allow a group of girls who know less than nothing to hold a funeral by themselves. That makes complete sense. But that kind of army logic doesn't work on civilians. Civilians aren't used to seeing friends die every day. They need the solace that mourning brings if they're to retain some stability. A soldier may be able to ignore those kinds of stresses, but it's easy to imagine how forcing the girls to bear them could build up problems for the future. And you especially have to consider the fact that these girls aren't like full-grown adults. They're like 10 to 13 years old. To expect 10 to 13-year-olds to deal with that kind of emotional stress is It's insane. Like I said, I understand where she's coming from, but I mean, well, basically what I'm trying to understand is I understand both parties here. I understand both parties here. I'm sure Patrick does too, which is why he's looks like he's gonna be forced to play the mediator, the negotiator in this debate. The military is like a machine. If one cog fails, the whole contraption breaks down. That's why orders from the top are absolute. The military is organized in such a way that any cogs that fail can be replaced at a moment's notice. I look him in the eye as I apologize, and he seems to sense my sincerity. He turns around as if to tell me that this conversation is over. The soldier stops in his tracks and shoots me an annoyed glance over his shoulder. You're free to escalate this if you want, but the higher-ups are of the same opinion as me. That's what Private Simmons' back seems to be telling me as he walks away. I turn to face Sally again. Tears are shimmering in the girl's eyes. She's been listening quietly to our conversation. The tears of regret and frustration seem to be asking me, is it really that great a sin, wanting to mourn my friend's death? Tightly clutched in her hand is a lock of Louise's hair. I can't think of any comforting words I could say to her right now. If I can't find the words, I'll have to use actions. Good man, Patrick. Sally seems to have calmed down a bit after talking to me. Perhaps she is embarrassed that she got so emotional over a personal request and realizes that she put everybody in danger by shouting so loudly, lacking awareness of the situation. I don't think that she would ignore the private's warnings and begin a funeral on her own in her current state. The 7 other girls are standing behind Sally. Natalie may be the youngest, but the others aren't that much older. Even Sally, who seems to be the most mature of the group, can't be any older than 14 or 15. Exhaustion is written on their faces, and their uniforms, stained with blood and mud after all their travails, only make them look all the more forlorn. I guess they could be bothered to add some dirt or blood on their uniforms, because those uniforms still look pretty pristine. And with those words, Sally leaves, taking the other girls with her to the spot where they've been told to rest. In that moment, Bruno stands up and asks me if I'm done. He must have been watching the whole exchange. It's always been my job to apologize whenever we get ourselves into trouble. It may sound self-deprecating to say I'm used to it, but I've learned that if you don't say sorry when your apologies will still be accepted, you'll only complicate things. It can be surprisingly difficult to judge when you should apologize and when you really shouldn't, though.
本当にブラウン5長に直訴しに行くのか？
そのつもりだよ。
ダメだって言われたら
日を改めてもう一度お願いしに行くしかない。
Really?
何度言われてもダメなものはダメだってなったら、
また明日同じお願いをしに来ます。
So you really, so this, so Patrick really wants this funeral to happen, huh?
しつこいな。厄介者扱いされるぞ。
一度や二度断られてダメだったよって言っても彼女たちは納得なんかしてくれないよ。でも僕がお願いし続けている間は彼女たちも黙って待ってるしかない。
そんなことしてる間に戦争が終わっちまうぜ。
戦争が終わってくれればそれこそ誰にも気兼ねなくお弔いができるさ。
要は女を言いくるめるための出任せか。ひでえやつだな。
このまま
Mm.
ブラウン5長に話をしに行かずにダメだったと言い続けるならそうかもしれない。でも僕は実際に話しに行くつもりだし、何もしないで腕組んで見てただけのやつに言われたくない。
Good man, Patrick, good man. I mean, I would say that it's not a good idea to bother these military guys and annoy the hell out of them, but I mean, I guess at the end of the day, Patrick deeply cares about these girls, and he at least wants to show them that he cares about the request. So, in other words, good man, Patrick, good man. Immediately after that, I head over to Corporal Donnie Brown's tent. Of course, I'm planning to get him to listen to me. I'm fully prepared for him to reject my request, but for now, it seems as if he's still talking with Oliver, so there is no room for me to interrupt. I decide to wait outside the tent until they're done talking, until eventually Oliver emerges. Perhaps they've come to an agreement. When he sees me standing in front of the tent, Oliver furrows his brow suspiciously while patting some of the dust and dirt off his uniform.
なんだ、何かあったのか？
ちょっとサリーたちがルイーズの弔いがしたいって言い出したんだけど許可してもらえなくて。
そんなことだろうと思った。だから遺体の一部回収なんて真似はやめろと言ったんだ。
I remember Oliver objecting when Sally insisted on cutting off some of Louise's hair and bringing it with her. But since we weren't under attack that moment, I argued that it would be fine for her to stop for a moment and take a lock of hair. Honestly, I never imagined that it would end up causing trouble along the line.
で見ればこれは僕が蒔いた種だ。責任は取らないと。
わかる話だが、今はやめておけ。
どうして？
とにかく今はダメだ。それよりも話がある。ブルーノはどうした？
休憩所にいると思うけど。
呼び出せ。3人だけで話。
Oh shit. What could this be about? I return to the rest area and gesture for Bruno to come with me, making sure the girls don't notice. We follow Oliver deeper into the forest. When Oliver saw me return with Bruno, he made sure that nobody saw us leave as we walk on. He never stopped scanning our surroundings.
なあ、なんなんだよ話って。ブラウン5長とどんな話をしたんだ？
俺の話は単純だ。子供たちを安全な場所に移送したい。そのルートを教えてくれと。
Directions to where?
安全なルートを教えてくれれば、厄介なガキどもは全部俺が引っ張っていく。この部隊に迷惑はかけないと、そう言った。
ブラウン5長の答えは？
そんなルートはない。あればトップに決定している。だとよ。
やっぱりか。敵地のど真ん中だもんな。俺たち素人がここまで無事に来れたこと自体が奇跡だ。
Yeah, you got some good plot armor going on. Let's see how long that plot armor lasts.
この戦争はもう負けるよ。
当然話したさ。いいかブラウン5長。本部の前線から交代してきた俺には分かる。
Oh, looks like we're getting a peek at their conversation.
それでも上の命令に従って犬死にするつもりか？どうせ死ぬなら少しでも助かる可能性が高い方を選ぶべきだ。俺たちと一緒に撤退しよう。
確かに機関が言うように、これは勝てない戦争だ。負けると決まっている戦争で戦ったところで、我々は友人だ。だったら勝つとか負けるとかはもう関係ないのだ。我々は戦わなければいけないから戦う。オリバー。今さら意地を張ったところで何も変わらんぞ。生き残ることを優先したらどうなんだ。確かに我々がここで戦って死んだところで何も変わらない。だが、たとえ結果が変わらなくて立ち向かった人間がいたことを歴史に残さなければならない。
I wonder how the audio is gonna turn out in the recording, because even on my end, like the corporal's voice is very quiet.
無条件で従ったりする。次はもっと理不尽な要求が来る。それに従えばさらにもっとひどい要求が提示され、それに耐えかねれば再び戦争が起きる。
環境を設定するね。サウンドの設定しちゃおっか。
Let's see, SFX, BGM voice, it's around 80. I should turn that up to 90, maybe 95. Let's try that.
10年後、20年後、我々の子供たちが戦わなくて済むよ。
Okay, I think that's a little bit
今
better.
我々が立ち向かわなければいけないのだ。それが我々軍人に与えられた仕事だ。そんな仕事にやりがいを見つけろと。
環境を
Actually, not fuck it. Let's just turn it up to 100.
無理にとは言えない。やれるやつには仕事を任せる。やりたくないやつにまでやらせる気はない。やる気のないやつにだらだら仕事されてるんだね。そもそも仕事のやりがいなどというものは他人に用意してもらうものではないし、他人が用意したやりがいなんてものは普通以外の何者でもないさ。
True, I guess.
甘ったれる。言ってくれる。その調子で部隊を操っているのか。
Manipulating this unit, goddamn.
知っているだろう。それが軍隊というものだ。基本軍隊ってやつは言われたことだけやってりゃいい仕事だが、残念なことにあんたたちはすでに軍隊として機能できないほどに損耗しているように見えるな。その通りだ。だからこそあえて言わせてもらう。はっきりと言ってしまえば、我が部隊には役立たずを養う体力などもう残されていないのだ。オリバー。よって機関たちに残された道は2つ。
Fight with you guys.
共に戦い結露を開くか、我が部隊の負担となる前に姿を消すか。
Wow. Suggesting these nuns turn into child soldiers, huh?
護衛もなしでガキを引き連れて敵だらけの山の中を逃げ回れと。敵に投降するという手もあるが推奨はしない。
You might as well. You guys are probably gonna. You guys are losing this war anyways by the sound of it, so you might as well.
これまで何度か投降の前例はあるが、敵が捕虜として本部まで連れ帰るのが困難であると判断したら、この場で射殺されるケースも。
No, I mean, like I said, they spared you guys. Toka, Megumin, Murasaki, and Yuki. They spared you guys because of the girls, so I think you guys might have a chance.
投降して生き残れるかどうかは賭けになる。非常に分の悪い賭けであることは間違いない。なるほど。誤解があっては困るのではっきりと言っておく。我々には機関たちを保護する体力も物資もない。残る気ならば戦ってもらわねば困るし、離脱するのであれば引き止めはしない。
And I'm guessing this is what Oliver wants to talk to Patrick and Bruno about. Because Patrick and Bruno are definitely not gonna like any of these two options. Nobody in the group is liking these options.
戦うのがどうしても嫌な。我が部隊が立ち去った後も ここに残ればこの戦争はあと数日で終わる。
Oh, hiding.
戦争が終わるここで身を隠し
That might be the best option.
簡単に言ってくれるな。食料も水もままならない状況で数日間もこんな場所に隠れていろと。
Well, it's simple, really. Really, you find somebody with a bottle of water and you fight for it.
それが一番安全だと言ってるだけだ。水を飲まなくても3日は持つ。食料も1週間は食わなくても持つ。ひたすら自給に徹し、水探し以外の無駄な体力損耗を抑えれば、それぐらいは持つだ。
I mean, that may be true in terms of food, but in terms of water, I don't think you could survive that long. So in other words, yeah, they're definitely not gonna like any of these options.
死ぬことが自分の価値だと信じて疑うこともしない。
で、どうすんだ？逃げるのか戦うのか、それともとどまるのか。
それを話し合おうって呼び出したんだろうが、なんでも俺に聞くな。頼られすぎても鬱陶しいだけだ。
But he's the one who told us to ask him for permission before we did anything. I'm about to object, but I can't get the words past my throat. It doesn't look like we have time to stand around and argue.
お前はどう思う？
前にも言ったろ。何もせずにただなぶり殺しにされるのを待つぐらいなら、戦って死んだ方がマシだってよ。逃げ出した先には何もねえ。俺は戦うぜ。
He has already made up his mind. That much is clear from the way Bruno checks the chamber of his automatic rifle again. I imagine Patrick would be a little bit more hesitant.
僕は戦いたくない。殺すのも殺されるのもごめんだ。
So I was wrong about Bruno, but what about Patrick?
そういうあなたはどうなんです？
そうだな。
With a conniving expression on his face, Oliver looks up at the sky as if to hide his true intentions.
逃げても助かる確証がない以上は戦いながら逃げるという手も。
Oh, is it 2 votes for fighting?
子供連れでか。
ここに留まって飢え死にするか、一か八かで投降するか。飢え死にほど苦しい死に方はないし、投降したところで生き残れる可能性も低い上に、女の子たちがどんな目に遭うかなんて想像もしたくないだろう。
And just imagine what they would do to the girls. Yeah, the thought of them being added to Haruto's harem. Oh, spine chilling.
だから戦いながら逃げると。
なに、いざとなったら全部投げ捨てて身軽になれば意外となんとかなるもんだ。
I immediately understand what he's hinting at. Oliver is planning to abandon the girls and escape on his own if things get dangerous. Still, it's a better option than sending the girls off to fend for themselves from the start. We could try to get as far as we can together, and if necessary, I could then leave Oliver and try to get the girls to safety myself.
どうする？パトリック。
わかった。戦いながら逃げよう。
あまり深く考えるな。前向きな撤退というやつだ。
What about the girls? Are you gonna give them guns too, or are you gonna hide them somewhere, or... Before my family joined TFA, I worked as a metal press factory for a while. My job was to process the metal parts that rolled by on the production line in front of me, and I was taught not to worry or even think about anything on the job. It was all, you're a machine, just do what you're told. If you let your thoughts drift, you make mistakes. People are machines too. Don't lose to your thoughts. Work harder, and maybe they were right. Sometimes you're better off not thinking. I ended up quitting that job after only 9 months because I just couldn't get used to it. I was told that most people who aren't suited to factory work end up quitting within a month. Since I lasted 9, maybe I wasn't all that bad at it. But I felt like if I stayed, it would have rotted my brain.
ところで、ルイーズの弔いの件だが、俺が許可を取ってやる。
Oh, really?
あんたが珍しいな。
Yeah.
厳しいだけでは部下は動かんと言うだろう。こういうタイミングで点数を稼いでおく必要がある。
Okay, and how do you intend on gaining points?
あんたらしい理由だな。要はパトリックの手柄を横取りってわけだ。納得したぜ。
気に入らないなら自分で直訴しに行け。簡単に話が通るとも思えんがな。
いえ、お任せします。
A civvy and a soldier can't negotiate on equal terms. But if it's a corporal talking to a corporal, he may be able to accomplish something. If what matters is the end result rather than who gets the credit, then I should be grateful for his offer.
戻って子供たちに教えてやれ。オリバーさんが何とかしてくれるとな。
助かります。
いいのかよ。
構わないさ。
If the result is the same, then the quickest method is more efficient. That's another truth I learned during my 9 months working at the factory. In fact, only 5 minutes passed between Oliver making his offer to go talk to Corporal Brown and him returning from the tent. The result? We have his permission under the condition that we only bury the remains. There's to be no fire and no singing. Cremating remains is forbidden due to the smoke and the smell, and singing for the dead is also forbidden. The main takeaway, don't sing Amazing Grace at the top of your lungs. Besides, basically, all we're allowed to do is bury the remains we brought back in the ground and say a silent prayer. So I'm guessing just that one lock of hair? Damn. Still, that's a good enough result. We don't need to parade the remains around in a horse-drawn carriage or anything like that. The mere act of holding a funeral in whatever form should be enough to comfort the bereaved girls. Well, I'm glad everything worked out. Well, kind of worked out in the end for these girls. Well, everything in terms of the funeral, of course. With a hurried step, I return to the place where we left the girls to tell them the good news. But when I arrive, I don't see them. For a moment, I fear that they decided to act on their own, but according to Private Kyle Simmons, the girls had asked if they could help with anything. Oh, wow. Well, that's nice. But they don't have any medical training. Well, I'm sure there's already medics over there. I look over at where the private points and manage to make out a larger tent that is so well camouflaged it's easy to miss. The unit has 22 men left, of which only 8 are still able to work. The other 14 men must be crammed into that tent. Unlike Bruno, I don't have any guns. From Private Simmons' perspective, I must be just as useless in battle as the girls. I don't mind being seen that way, though. Doing as I'm told, I approach the tent. In trampling the undergrowth, you create a visible path, and that increases your risk of being spotted by the enemy. So I try to be careful not to step on the plants too much, and I take a slightly different route every time I walk somewhere. The closer I get to the tent, the darker the gloomy shadow that hangs over it appears. Something feels out of place, though. A singing voice from inside the tent. It isn't one of the girls, so it must be one of the injured soldiers. Maybe it's a side effect of the sedative he's been given. As I reach the entrance of the tent, something else emerges from inside. A pungent smell. It's a mix of blood, pus, and excrement. Ew. I drop to my knees and crawl into the low tent. It's dark inside, and the rotten smell is several times stronger than it was outside. It feels like the stench is causing my body and soul to rot as well. Sally is the first to notice me when I peek my face into the tent. I gave her a small nod when I recognized her, and I look around for the other girls. Sally, Melissa, Ashley, Charlene, the twins Alma and Irma, and the youngest girl, Natalie. All seven of them are present. In addition to the girls, I can make out 6 soldiers who seem to be heavily injured and form mummy-like objects wrapped in raincoats. In the back of the dark tent is a man who appears to be the medic. He keeps on working as he talks, not even sparing me a glance. I didn't spot anybody back there, so the words catch me by surprise. The back of the man's shirt is covered in dark sweat stains, as if he's carrying the burden of death after death on his back.
手は足りていると言われましても
He's got 9 helpers. I think he should be fine. Wait, are there 9? No, wait. Well, wait. No, I think 7. Either way, he's got plenty of the girls. He's got plenty of help. If there are 6 patients, not counting the mummies, and 7 girls tend to them, 8 pairs of hands if you include the medic, then maybe it's pointless for me to stay.
ぼさっとしてないで。手が空いているなら包帯を干してこい。
包帯を干すんですか？
替えの包帯はないし、洗おうにも水がない。水があれば飲ませて。
The medic hands me a water bandage soaked with pus and other bodily fluids, then finally turns to me. I feel like this would go against some medical guidelines, but I mean, when you're in the middle of the woods where supply is limited, and it's not like any of the higher ups are gonna give them a hand with that. I mean, I can understand it, you know, doing whatever you can with what you have.
だったら食料の調達に回れ。こんなところで何をしている？
すみません。子供たちの様子が気になったもので。
見ての通り。手は足りている。ここには3人だけ残して。
3.
他に連れている。
I'll look around and see that each girl is tending to one patient. They're all picking maggots from the patient's wounds using handmade chopsticks carved out of wood and placing them in a lid of a mess tin. It's noble work, but it seems almost cruel to make these girls do it, considering the unusually sheltered environment in which they've been raised.
ウジは海を食べてくれるから取らない方がいいと聞いたことがありますが。
皮下に潜り込まれると厄介だ。人間なんか数日で食い尽くされちまう。
Yeah, I can,
素人は黙って。
Yeah, I mean, if I was in a position, I mean, well, even if I wasn't, I wouldn't let maggots anywhere near my body. That's what I'm saying.
すみません。
The medic must have silenced the girls in a similar manner. They diligently pick at the wounds and must be trying their hardest to suppress their nausea. Sally must be the oldest, but she's no exception. She looks like she could cry at any moment, and she's struggling to pick up the maggots because her hands are shaking so much. When one of the objects that I thought were dead bodies suddenly speaks to me, I almost jump in surprise. I glance around, but I don't see any flask that I could give him. And even if we had flasks, we still don't have any water. At the medic's works, everybody in the tent exchanges hesitant glances as if asking each other, who's gonna do it? It's an unpleasant job that nobody seems to want to take on. As the oldest Sally takes this as her cue to stand up, but then Melissa also stands up as if to stop Sally. Now that Louise, the postulant, is no longer with us, the pre-postulant, Melissa must feel like it is her duty to do something. He moves to the corner of the tent and quickly... Oh, no. Don't tell... Wait. Don't tell me. She moves to a corner of the tent and quietly picks up a mess tin, opens the lid and checks its contents. The soft splashing sound tells her that there isn't much left inside. And she heads over to the patient and slowly lifts the tin up to his mouth. That's not water in the tin. Is there really water in the tin? No way. I catch a glimpse of what's inside. It isn't water. The liquid is green, and there are small bits of leaf mixed in. It's probably sap extracted from plants in the forest. Okay. It's sap. Okay, okay, that makes it better. It's just sap. The injured soldier, whose whole body is wrapped in bandages, takes a noisy gulp of this dirty water. Even though it's scarcely qualified as water, it's still a precious liquid. He appears to be thanking Melissa from the bottom of his heart. These poor soldiers should have been drinking sap instead. Or maybe they were, until they saw the bottle of water. Give it to one of them, and they all start clamoring for some. Melissa looks questioningly at the medic, who gives her a small nod in response.
一口ずつ
Melissa adjusts her glasses with the knuckle of her thumb, careful not to touch her eyes with her dirty fingers. Then she goes around and gives each of the patients a sip of water.
水です口を開けてください
One of the men doesn't open his mouth when Melissa offers him the
もう
tin.
死んでるそいつには水を与える必要はない
さっきまで元気そうに歌っていたのに
Oh, probably his last song then.
死ぬ寸前は元気になるんだろうそくが燃え尽きる寸前のあれと同じだそいつはもういい
The medic's hard language makes Melissa bite down on her lip. Tears roll down her cheeks. She takes off her glasses to wipe her face.
泣くな水分がもったいない
Well, on the bright side, maybe her teardrops can add to the liquid. I mean, liquid is scarce around here, so honestly, I'm just glad it's just sap and nothing nothing beyond that, because I was definitely expecting the worst case scenario. Telling a girl not to cry will only make her cry more. The tears are now flowing freely down Melissa's cheeks. Her thick glasses make her look like a bit of a nerd, and her weak, timid, introverted personality is exactly what you'd expect from a girl like that. Her earnestness and diligence seem to be her only redeeming features. She must have been in trouble processing all this emotionally. Her only redeeming features? Wow, that's awfully rude to say to a woman, Patrick. Does she feel sad for the soldier who just died? Maybe that's what she's feeling. Maybe what she's feeling is a sense of pity mixed with a fear that she herself may die in a similar way, and she's doubtless struggling to accept that reality. She must also be wrestling with a sense of injustice, but she understands that in this situation she can't cry out, "Why do I have to be the one to do this?" She must feel disgusted with herself for even thinking that. She probably has tried her best to hide her emotions, but they've been brought to the surface by these extreme circumstances, and now she's feeling embarrassed and miserable. That's why she can't stop crying. The fact that I understand exactly how she feels makes me uncomfortable. In an attempt to change the mood in the tent, I loudly speak up.
軍医殿
この部隊の軍医はとっくに死んだ私は軍医じゃないし、
Oh.
衛生兵でもないただの薬剤師だ調剤はできても治療はできない
Oh, what?
知識があるからと
Damn.
教えられただけだ
でも
分かってるディーゼルって名前だけで車両の整備に回されたやつよりはマシだが
Wow.
薬剤の知識があるといったところでここにはその薬剤がない火炎放射器で焼かれてまぶたが残っていないやつに目薬をさしてやろうにも目薬がない目薬どころか薬なんて何もない
They don't got
抗生物質どころかアクリノールもチンク油すらもない
Oh, man. I guess this is another reason why they decided to show... yeah, there's a lot of reasons why they decided to show this side of the TFA. Why they actually gave us characters in TFA. Because, like... war is just tough on everybody. It really just shows, like, how much the higher-ups are screwing over the soldiers and the little guys. It also shows the stark contrast between Sword and TFA. You know, it really makes you sympathize with the enemy. Because unlike TFA, you know, Sword, well, Sword has, like, they got food, they got air conditioning, they got water, they got all the necessary supplies, while these guys over here, they're struggling. Their supplies are so scarce, and TFA ain't doing... The higher-ups of TFA, Anishi, Khaled, nobody is giving them any type of mercy. Nobody's refilling their stock. They're they're basically scraping by with whatever they got, with whatever they can find. Ah, it's so.
野草を潰して公薬を作るにしてもデタラメだ。
They don't even have a proper
なん
medic.
となく効きそうな気がする草をすりつぶしているに過ぎない。もちろん効果なんか期待できない。
Yeah, I mean that's what war does. Nobody benefits from it. No fun. No. Every side hurts. I mean, there is no good guy or bad guy. It's not that simple. The attitude of this man, who isn't a doctor or a medic, but just a pharmacist, comes across as somewhat belligerent. I mean, yeah, I mean, even though I love everyone at Sword, I mean, I really do sympathize with the guys in TFA as well, especially these soldiers who have absolutely no input in whatever decision Anishi and Callan, the higher-ups, make. They're just doing whatever they can to survive. Since he doesn't have the necessary medical knowledge, he can't do anything for his comrades who are dying in front of him. He seems to be trying to convince himself that it's not his own fault that he can't save them.
お前たちも余計なことはするな。
The medic points at one of the patients. The man's face is swollen like a balloon, most notably around his lips. Looking closer, he has swellings over his body, his whole body, and they all look like they would pop if you puncture them with a
こ
needle.
いつはな、傷病者のために薬草を取りに行くと言って、めぼしい野草を片っ端から口に入れて。
Oh, don't do that. Never do that.
こうなった。
You don't. This is why if you're not a plant expert, you don't go around consuming random plants out in the woods. Because you don't know if they're actually safe for humans or if they're poisonous. Everything about this seems wrong. You tried to do something to help others and got punished for it in a horrible way. It serves as a firm reminder that war is fundamentally illogical.
俺の名前はマシュー・マッケンジー。こいつは俺の弟。名前はウィリアム。
Oh, that's his brother? The man takes a pair of scissors out of a pouch and cuts off his brother's swollen pinky finger, wrapping it in a thin, dirty
この
bandage.
戦争が終わったら、こいつを埋めてやってくれ。
Aww.
私にはできそうもない。
わかりました。
ここはもういい。他を手伝いに行け。ここにいても気がめいるだけだぞ。
With those words, he drives me out of the medical tent. I was there, hoping that there would be something I could help out with, but in the end, I accomplished nothing and got kicked out. Our presence is clearly nothing but a burden on this unit, but I don't feel angry at having been branded useless. Actually, I'm relieved that he sent me away.
どうだった？
Not well, to be... Not well. If that's what you're wondering, Bruno. Not well at all.
どうだったって？
Bruno probably already knows what the situation is like inside the tent. It seems to be where they shove all the troublemakers. One glance at the situation inside tells 1,000 words. It's the quickest way to show unexpected visitors like us that we're not welcome. I understand that. I understand, but...
あんまりだ。あれじゃ手招きして呼び寄せた子供に思いっきりビンタをするような仕打ちだよ。
軍隊ってのはさ、飯がうまいと感じるうちは大丈夫。飯がまずいと文句を言っているうちもまだ大丈夫。味など関係ないとばかりに、混ぜて食うようになったら要注意だって言うだろ。
Bruno keeps staring at his feet as he continues in a low voice.
オリバーが言うにはさ、そこからまだ先があって、爪が伸びても切らなくなったやつも要注意だって話だ。細かいことがどうでもよくなってきた証拠だってよ。
I haven't particularly noted it, but I realize that Bruno is right. Every member of this unit has long fingernails. Growing your nails may feel like proof that you're still alive, but due to the lack of nutrition, all the men's nails are downward curling and brittle. Ugh. I know that we can't stay here forever, but there's nothing else we can do. If we took the girls with us and escaped, would we be able to reach a safe place? What if we ran to the enemy? What if we got hit by our own field cannon? How long would we have to wander through the forest without access to food or water? How do you define a safe place anyway? If we went down the mountain and headed into town and someone found out that we're TFA, they would skin us alive and hang us upside down. The mountain stronghold is the only safe place we've known.
一番最初に犠牲になるのはいつも安全なのも同じってことだ。
何もせずに安全が手に入るかよ。上を向いて口を開けて待っているだけじゃ腹は膨れないのと同じだ。
Yeah, but what are you gonna do?
安全は手に入らないってことさ。
Bruno subconsciously adjusts the strap of the automatic rifle that's still slung over his shoulder. Maybe he's signaling something to me.
僕にも銃を取れってのか。
そうは言わねえよ。俺は俺だし、お前はお前だ。弱者でいることに慣れてしまって、悔しいとも思わない人間に何を言っても無駄だと思ってるぜ。
僕は君のそんな言葉にも腹が立たないんだから。言いたいことはわかるよ。わかるけど。
Bruno's definitely implying something. I think it's about time you pick up a gun, Patrick. Or something like that. It's okay to change your opinion when someone's words strike a chord with you, but you're very fragile in that moment when your feelings shift. I've seen too many people become muddled because of their exposure to an unfamiliar environment and a new way of thinking. That kind of person is easily influenced by others' rhetoric. Even if they insist that they are who they are, they care more than anyone about what other people have to say. I know I'm in response, but I don't have an immediate answer ready. I don't have a clear goal. I stare at my hands for a moment, trying to find the right words. I'm still holding the finger that the phony medic Matthew Mackenzie gave me. Ludo? Cadbury? Bruno's all like, it's not my job to remember these girls' names. Oh yeah, Cadbury, that's it. Yeah, I know that as a chocolate brand, but I don't know Ludo or Louis or Lint. Well, to be fair, she was a sweet girl. At least that's what she seemed like. I had put the pinky figure Matthew Mackenzie gave me into the duffel bag at my hip, but now I take it out again. Then I remember that he told me to do it after the war was over, so I put it back a second time. I stuff it deep into the duffel bag and take out something else. A ring. Oh, he was married. The body was already a mess when it came flying at Louise. Its left arm followed a couple of moments later. On the ring finger of the left hand, which was barely attached to the wrist, I found a wedding ring. The moment I saw it, I thought I should try to return it to the bereaved family. Aw, Patrick's such a good guy. And what's funny is that before they met this main group, I'm sure they would have, if they found that ring before they met the main group, they probably would have considered selling it. I'm guessing maybe Patrick had a change of heart throughout this whole experience. As long as a bereaved family accepts the ring, believing it to have belonged to their loved one, they will feel as if he has come home, whether it really did or not. Even if the ring belonged to a complete stranger, it should still allow them to mourn the death of their beloved. Someone somewhere will be doing the same with the real ring after all. Oh, looks like Oh, looks like we got a new track here. Evangel. I think there was a new track back in the Meg tent. It was like called Butterflies something. So yeah, I think that's 2 new tracks that we've gotten so far. With that decided, I take the girls deep into the forest once again. Even Bruno, who said he had no interest in the funeral, decided to come with us as our guard. He's walking at the very end of the line. In war, it's inevitable that people will die, and sometimes you have no choice but to kill the enemy. Even children know that war is bad, but war still happened. We all know that we shouldn't accept that that's the way things are, but maybe war is inevitable. As a kid, I thought that funerals existed to remind us that we shouldn't consider all those deaths normal, that we shouldn't get used to them. In fact, I don't think my thoughts on them have changed much since then. I still feel like people never reflect on their actions unless they result in pain and grief. After walking through the dark forest for about 10 minutes, the girls start digging a small hole, using shovels they've borrowed from the soldiers.
穴はもっと深く掘れ。梅が浅いと野生動物に掘り返される。
The earth is soft, so it isn't difficult to dig a deep hole. At the same time, this means that anything we bury could be easily dug up again. Sally, a shovel held in one hand, wipes sweat from her brow with her other hand before answering with a soft, okay. Once the hole is so deep that the girls' arms disappear into it up to their elbows, they each take some of Louise's hair and form an orderly line. One by one, they drop the hair into the hole and say a quiet prayer. What about Loraine? You got a souvenir from Loraine too, right? The words chosen by Sally leave an especially deep impression on me. Since a lot of us have spent much of our lives in a dark underground stronghold, light has a special meaning for us. The first class members in particular paid a large sum of money when they joined TFA in the belief that they would be buried in a bright, sunny place when they died. As I watch the girls, I end up voicing my thoughts out loud.
なあブルーノ人が死ぬってどういうことなの？
Another death flag? Man, these girls clearly have preferences. Loraine doesn't all Loraine gets is the prayer, but Louise gets a whole funeral. Damn. Bruno, who was standing next to me, absentmindedly picking at a hangnail, looks up with a troubled expression when I suddenly ask that question.
物理的な話か精神的な話か
総合して
My question is so vague that it could have any number of answers, but Bruno doesn't seem to particularly care. He nonchalantly bites his nail, then licks it when it starts to bleed.
例えばだお前は友人だが別にお前がどうなろうと俺の知ったこっちゃないしどうしようとお前の自由だけどお前のお
I wonder how these guys met, actually.
お前のお袋のピクルスは最高だどんな酒に
Oh.
俺はピクルスを食うたびにお前のお袋を思い出す
Oh, that's sweet. So yeah, these guys must have known each other for a long time.
もしお前が死んだせいでお前のお袋が泣いたら俺はピクルスを食うたびにお前のお袋の泣き顔を思い出す羽目になるそんなのはごめんな
Living underground, it's extremely difficult to obtain fresh vegetables. You're lucky to be able to buy wilted or misshapen veggies, and since it goes bad immediately, most of our produce gets pickled or preserved. My mom may be a hopeless alcoholic and drug addict, but everybody appreciates the pickles she makes. Whenever we're able to get our hands on some vegetables, she expertly pickles them and distributes them among our neighbors.
その程度
Stop thinking about the meaning of life. That's all total bullshit. There's no meaning to life, and if people say that there is, it's never anything but an afterthought. Even thinking about it makes me lose all will to live. That's what Bruno would say about it. But how about me? What does death mean to me? As somebody who has spent his whole life so far running away from trouble. As someone for whom living only means not being dead yet. I look across at the girls as they're searching for an answer. They finish covering the grave, with leaves and branches from nearby trees, and have their hands folded in front of their chests in prayer. Then one by one they raise their heads and start walking away.
終わったみたいだぜ さっさと戻ろう。
君は祈らないのか？
I'm not sure how he interprets my words, but Bruno lets out a chuckle and calls out to the girls, "Let's go back!" Where exactly will we go back to, though? Does he mean the soldier's base? Home? The soil of the earth? What will be our end destination? Our final home? Patrick's getting mighty philosophical. People tend to search for meaning in death similarly to how they search for meaning in life. Even though I know that thinking about these things in a time of war is pointless, I can't stop my thoughts from wandering. When we returned to the base, we heard the voices of some soldiers who seemed to be arguing. Again?
助けなんて来ると思ってたのか？とっくに見捨てられてるんだよ、俺たちは。今さら何言ってやがった。
It's true.
そんなことにも気づいてなかったのかよ。
そんなことは気づいている。
Thanks to fucking DJ Khaled. You guys have been SOL for quite a
じゃ
while
あな
now.
んで文句言ってんだ？元カノの悪口言うことしかできねえ振られ男じゃあるめえし、そんなことだからクズって言われんだぜ。
That's because you all have been dumped.
あんたと
同情してほしいのか？だったらみんなに聞いて回れ。これって俺悪くないよねってみんなに聞いてうざがられてるバーカ。
Baka.
言わせておけば。
Easy there, gods. You don't want to draw enemy attention by raising your voice and doing something reckless. They finally start fighting among themselves. No, I'm sure this has happened from time to time since before we arrived. The other soldiers heave deep sighs as if they've all seen and heard it before, but nobody tries to intervene.
バカ死ねえ。おめえみたいなバカが死んでも世の中何一つ変われしねえってのあの世から見て落ち込め。死んでなお落ち込めクズや。
Jeez.
お前はいつだってそうだ。口を開けば文句ばっかりで嫌いなものの話するときだけは元気だな。お前が陰でお友達になんて言われてるか心配になるで。
Ah, yeah, this whole situation's really taking a toll on them, both physically and mentally. Like, two soldiers who are supposed to be brothers in arms and all that are now turning on each other like this. I don't know where they get the energy from, but the blows they're exchanging are much harder than you'd expect in a scuffle between comrades. They're being so loud that no doubt Corporal Brown has heard them
何
too.
をしているか。
His intimidating roar makes it clear to all present that the corporal will not hear any excuses. Everybody freezes in place. That is, except for the two men who are fighting, who keep exchanging blows as though they don't care about the consequences. Corporal Brown mutters under his breath as he moves to stand behind one of the two soldiers who's sitting in his comrade's chest and punching him in the face. The corporal quietly draws his knife and slashes the belligerent man's throat. Damn! The blood then spills from his throat appears strangely viscous, likely due to a lack of nutrition. Oh, I hope none of the girls see this. The private clutches his throat, which is making an unpleasant gurgling noise before collapsing to the ground.
誰が味方同士で戦えと言った。
Woo! Hollow House is playing. Yep, this situation is definitely not pleasant. The man is dying. He lies on the ground with his throat slit open, the light slowly disappearing from his eyes. This is the secret behind the corporal's firm leadership of his
いい
unit.
か。もう一度言明する。敵と戦わず、味方と戦う奴は裏切り者だ。
Oof.
私は裏切り者は容赦なく殺す。
Don't anger the corporal. Don't fuck with the corporal. Oh, looks like we now get to see the faces of the soldiers. Woo! At that moment, I see the ghosts of several soldiers lined up behind Corporal Brown. The corporal must have already killed several of his subordinates in a similar manner. Yeah, maybe there's a reason why there's only like 22. Maybe there was like 27 before, but some of them got belligerent and now it came down to 22. And then I think now there's 21. And all is that he's responsible for having ended multiple lives that way, lend his words an unpleasant tang. That must be why nobody dares to respond to him. It's not just the soldiers, the girls are also staring in fear. Not a single one of them screamed. The first person to break the silence is Oliver, who emerges from behind Corporal Brown. He stands next to me and mutters quietly enough for only me to hear. I can't bring myself to turn and face him.
過ぎた殴り合いで味方が死ぬことだってあれば、それがまたストレスになって喧嘩が起きる。戦争がなくならないわけだ。
I watch Corporal Brown's back as he wipes his bloody knife and puts it back in his sheath. There's a large sweat stain on the back of his shirt. My eyes remain fixed on the corporal as I ask Oliver. Well, there's really no easy answer to that, but you understand why he did it. I mean, considering how much these men lecture about the importance of keeping quiet and not to make a ruckus. Yeah, also definitely sends a clear message to the rest of the squadron. No matter how strict the leader is, fights will always break out. Yeah, I mean, it's not like Patrick tried to intervene. Even if he intervenes, grudges will linger. Every time he puts out a fire, it takes out only the slightest spark to reignite it. And he doesn't have the time or patience to do that again and again. I understand that. But I don't condone killing people just to put an end to their fighting. Yeah, Oliver may seem blunt a lot of times, but keep in mind, TFA is struggling. Like, they're going through hell on earth. Oliver turns his back to me, avoiding my gaze, and walks away without waiting for my answer. Nobody steps onto the battlefield because they want to do things like this. But the battlefield clouds your judgment. When you've lost sight of the reason you've decided to take up your gun for someone else's sake, only pride and stubbornness keep you going. Once you may have spoken of freedom and peace, now those virtues have become like poison. On the battlefield, people are so focused on surviving that they don't realize they're slowly going insane. And those who do realize pretend that they don't, because there is nothing that can be done about it anyway. Alright, I think that's a good place to stop, actually. Gone on a lot longer than I did with part 4, but that's because I know that this is going to be a pretty long visual novel. I mean, it's $30 for Christ's sake. So, yeah, that's... as much as I love this visual novel, I mean, it's not like I want this to be done, like, quickly, but it's because, like I just don't feel like making this, like, a 20-part series, like Volume 7. Although it might end up being, like, a 20-part series. Who knows? But yeah, this was a pretty dark turn of events. We got to see that, like, it was all about Patrick's and Bruno's group. What we basically saw is that just because they are in an ally base doesn't mean that they're in a sanctuary. Doesn't mean that trouble is over for them. Oh no, quite the opposite. Because the soldiers are actually in a much worse position than they are, in fact. Maybe not much worse, but they're at least just as bad of a position as they are. Because they're also scraping by, they're also going through hell on earth. It's taking a toll on a lot of them. Like, you can really tell. I mean, that's really why, I mean, I do like this about Volume 8 so far. I mean, it really shows it does a great job of showing both sides of the war. Even though Sword is a lot better off than TFA, that's for sure. At least this squadron of TFA. I mean, it reminds me of Attack on Titan. I mean, because in this war, this war is like any other war. There's no good guy or bad guy. It's just men being sent off to kill other men, and yeah, it doesn't really glorify any of that. At least not on TFA's side. I mean, well, like I said, while I do love the moments in Sword between our main group, I do like what's been going on, seeing what's been going on in TFA's side. You know, it does a great. This novel does a great job at making us sympathize with these guys. I'm definitely interested in seeing how it all turns out once they actually do meet Sword. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter. Support my Patreon. Links in the description down below. And I'll see you guys next time.